Hi, everybody. This is the November 3, 2022 meeting of the Rockport Planning Board. All members of the board are present. And so we'll begin the meeting with what we begin with always, which is public comment, which is comment from the public on any matter relating to planning. And we also have a public comment period at the end of the meeting. But let's start off with the public comment period now. So if you want to make a comment, please raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll move on to the other items on the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I have a hand from Toby Arsenian.
Okay.
Thank you. Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. I attended, if you call Zoom attending, the Board of Selectmen's meeting on Tuesday evening. One of the agenda items was scheduling a town meeting for your proposed zoning changes. I thought it odd, also unfortunate that you were not there. The gist of it was that there are other things going on, and I thought you had a definite date for the first Monday in December. As it turned out, I misunderstood, or that was not the case. At any rate, it was said that there were other things conflicting with that date. They weren't specified. Then it was proposed that you might have a date in January, and Sarah Wilkinson remarked that that would conflict with basketball practice. I was astounded. If you didn't know, now you do, that basketball practice one night of is more important than the zoning code. You might consider that. I don't know where you take it from there. I'd like your reaction.
Okay, well,
Chair,
Mitch, you want to talk, Mitch, about this?
Sure. So what I conveyed was our conversation, Mr. Chair, about things are simply not ready for the 6th. That's what was explained to the selectmen, and that's what was shared with the relevant parties. And I also clarified that the 6th, as you and I discussed, was the only date available for the schools for December. So it was that, or we'd have to look to January, and that's what I conveyed to the board. Because we're simply not, as you and I talked about, we're not ready to, we would need materials next week to be ready for a December 6th meeting.
Yeah, we're not. I mean, that's been one of the issues, and it's a big issue, as I mentioned at our last meeting. But just getting the draft articles for the warrant in shape for submission and publication is, it's a big job, and we're not going to be ready to have those sufficiently in advance to have a meeting, in December. I mean, we've got Thanksgiving coming up, which blocks out maybe 4 days, right? At least 2 days of the week right there, really 3. And so January is a realistic date. It's an attainable date, and we're working to get them in shape, which I think we'll be able to do by a January meeting. That's, there's no way we can do it earlier. I wish we could, but we can't. So, okay. Any other hands?
Mr. Chair, we have one from Catherine Howe.
Okay, hi. Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify whether you'd like me to comment now or at the time the 6th Gull Cove Lane application is being discussed.
Well, let's get to the application. I know both you and you on behalf of some individual property owners opposing the application, and Bob Visnick on behalf of the applicants, the Symes, have submitted many documents. I wanted to talk about that, but let's do that later. I don't want to spend a lot of time on oral presentations tonight. I think we've had plenty of stuff submitted, and I'll explain why later. So let's wait. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? No other hands up?
No other hands up, Mr. Chair.
Okay, great. All right, so let's move to the first item on the agenda. It's A&R from revised application from Jeffrey and Jacqueline Amaro. I know that everything was really in order on this A&R except for one thing. They didn't have any topographical information showing that the lot that they were creating was in fact a lot that was, could be created. And they've come back with a topographical map. It's been filed with the board. I'm assuming all board members have seen it. If it speaks for itself. I don't have any comments. For me, it's satisfactory. If anybody has any thoughts on that, otherwise we'll put it up for a motion to approve. This is 29 Landmark Lane.
I move to approve.
Okay.
Second that
Seconded.
motion.
Okay, there's a second. Motion second. No, so we need a roll call vote. The motion is to approve the A&R application from Jeffrey and Jacqueline Amaro as amended. And motion by Tom, seconded by Peter. So let's do a roll call vote. Tom?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Harry?
Aye.
And I'll vote in favor. A&R approved. So this will need to be signed by all the members of the board. And Mary will take care of that. And if the Amaros are here, I don't know if they are at the meeting or
Yes.
not. Oh, they are? Okay.
They are, yes.
Yeah, oh, good. Okay. So they can probably call Mary, but you probably be able to pick this up middle of next week, next Wednesday for filing.
Okay, that'd be great. I'll go down there on Wednesday. Or,
Okay. Yeah, just call ahead of time. Just, be a good idea to talk with Mary before you show up because she's not in Monday and Tuesday. So let her get in on Wednesday, get her bearings and, maybe Wednesday afternoon or even Thursday.
Yeah, I'll be out of town on Thursday, so I'll.
Okay.
come in Thursday.
Okay, great.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. All right.
Yeah.
Next item on the agenda is a continuation of a determination of the adequacy of a way which has been labeled 6 Gulf Cove Lane, even though there really isn't one. But anyway, just for identification purposes, that's what it's been labeled. We've had multiple submissions since our last meeting. I believe this was adjourned at the request of the applicant to tonight. We've had submissions from the applicant, the Symes, and we've also had submissions from Catherine Howe on behalf of several of the neighboring property owners. Can everybody still hear me? Good, okay, good. So what my thought is this. We have, I think, with all the deeds and other documents that have been submitted, this has been factually developed sufficiently. In other words, we don't really need or have any factual disputes here. I think it's all, it's all there. So the only question now, there's only one fact that may be need to be discussed, which is the letter from the fire chief, Kirk Keating. But other than that, I think everything's been talked about and talked about again and talked about again. So what we don't need is what lawyers, and I'm speaking as one, what lawyers tend to do is they tend to say, well, just in case you didn't get it the first 3 times that I told it to you, I want to tell it to you a 4th time. That we don't need. Okay, we've got everything we need. We've got we've contacted town council. We've got some guidance from town council, and so I don't think we really need any other information from either Mr. Visnick or Ms. Howe. And I don't think we take any new information at this point anyway. Okay. So somebody has their hand up, but I don't know who they are.
Mr. Chair, I have hands up from David Coyne as well as Luis Pepe.
Yeah, we're not, this isn't a public hearing. We're not taking comments from the public on this. Because we've had enough. We don't need any more stuff. If you want to talk about this, and if you have something really new to add, if you want to just tell us what your opinion is, or how bad or how good this would be, really not interested. It doesn't matter at this point. So, okay. Okay, you're waving your hand, sir. What do you want to add?
I'm in a butter on Gull Cove Lane.
Are you represented by counsel?
No.
Okay, so what?
Do I need to be represented by counsel?
No, I'm just asking you because I know Ms. Howe represents a number of property owners.
No, I'm in a butter on Gull Cove Lane, right at the entrance of Gull Cove Lane. And I'm concerned, and I've just found this out by reading the PDFs, that the lane may be reconfigured for whatever reason I don't understand. I've lived on the lane for 10 years. The two abutters beside me, one of them has lived on the lane for 26 years. Any kind of vehicle, probably with the exception of school buses or tractor trailer trucks, go up and down the lane without any problem. And my concern is, if we change the entrance to the lane, we're going to take away two stone walls that have been there since the lane.
Okay, well, first of all, let me just stop you right there. No one's changing the entrance to Gold Cove Lane. So if that's your concern,
That's my concern.
then
That's my only concern.
then you can rest easy.
Okay, that's what my concern was.
Okay, then you can rest easy on that. One other comment, again, if you're represented by counsel, then your counsel has already spoken for you.
Yeah, no, I'm not represented by counsel. I sit at 4 Gull Cove Lane, and so I'm just trying to listen to your words. The entrance will not be changed, so you've confirmed that. How about the rest of the way?
Well, the only portion of Gold Cove Lane, well, it's actually questionable whether it's Gold Cove Lane or not, is the end that is not the paved portion. That's all we're dealing with at this point.
Not the paved portion.
Not the
Okay,
paved portion, correct. Okay,
thank you.
all right. I'm glad we cleared that up. All right. Anything else? Does anybody?
Jason, just a matter of clarification, please.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that Gull Cove Lane was actually paved.
well, whatever the surface is, I
Okay,
thought it was
Yeah,
some kind of macadam or something.
yeah. I don't think it's paved in the sense that it's either concrete or bituminous. It's,
What is it then?
I think it's compacted gravel.
Oh, okay, well, maybe that's what it is, but
No.
yeah, well, it doesn't really matter because we're only talking about the portion of the road or of the way that is beyond, I think the last number is 4. It is beyond that going to the south, and it is not paved or anything. And it was up until recently, it had a tree in it. So, that's the portion that we're talking about. Right? Not anything up from that where there are houses and driveways and et cetera. We're not talking about that. All right, just want to make that clear. Okay. So if we don't have anything further to discuss, I think we as a board have to, I think we've got enough information now to talk about this among ourselves. When we're talking about it among ourselves, that's just what it's going to be. We're not taking comments from council. We're not taking comments from members of the public. It's going to be a discussion among the board members and just among the board members. So save your hands. Okay, you don't have to raise them. All right, does anybody want to discuss this at all? I mean, I can just put it in a framework, which I think it is. We're looking at basically and I don't think there's any dispute here. There is a deeded right of way that abuts, or I wouldn't, that abuts the property of the Tryons, because they're the owners of the property. There is a deeded right of way. I don't think there's any dispute that exists on paper. So unless somebody has some question about that, I think that is there. All the planning board members have seen it, both in April, when this application was first filed of this year, and then later in the summer when it was refiled after some construction work had been done in the area of this right of way. Everyone's seen it. Everyone's been there. I know I've been there multiple times. I know other board members have been there multiple times and seen it. So the issue is, well, let's go down. What is a way or a street? And we can look at the definition, because this is essentially, even though there's no lot being divided here, it's essentially an application, an A&R application, because it's saying, look, we have this lot, it's on this way, and the way is adequate for vehicular traffic, and nothing has to be done to it to make it adequate for vehicular traffic. It's adequate as it is now. And that's, we've dealt with A&Rs before. This is an A&R minus the fact that we're not dividing any lots. And the reason for an A&R, my understanding is, and from what I've read, an A&R is basically what it is, an approval not required, because basically the law says that if the access is adequate, then you don't need to go get subdivision approval. It avoids the subdivision process, which would also require the improvement or creation of a road, pursuant to some specifications that are required under the subdivision law of the town. So we go to a definition of a way or a street. And again, I think we can narrow it down here as to what definition is at issue in this particular case. Number one, a way or a street, this is on page 6 of our bylaws, a way or a street used or available for use for vehicular traffic. Well, vehicular traffic, not walking, not riding horses, not snowmobiles, but vehicular traffic, and meeting one of the following definitions. Number one, a public way duly laid out by the town, by Essex County, or by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I don't think the area in question fits any one of those. So I would say that doesn't apply. But again, if someone wants to, any other board member wants to pipe up something differently, please do so. The second item B is a way or street shown on a definitive subdivision plan approved and endorsed by the planning board in accordance with the subdivision control law and constructed in accordance with that plan and the rules and regulations of the planning board. So we don't have that here either. I'll skip down to item C. This is the one that probably applies here. A way or street in existence on July 14th, 1951, having, in the opinion of the planning board, sufficient width, suitable grades, and adequate construction to adequately provide for the needs of vehicular traffic in relation to the proposed use of the lots abutting thereon or serviced thereby. So when it says a way or street in existence on July 14th, 1951, for this to make any sense at all, it doesn't mean that the way was in existence or the street was in existence on July 14th, 1951, but then on July 15th of 1951 was not used anymore. In other words, the idea here is that it should be in existence in July 14th, 1951, and continues to be in existence now. It's not like it was in existence then, but it stopped being used in 1961. I don't believe that's what this provision means. It means that to avoid the subdivision control law, it's got to be in existence prior to the adoption of that. And that's really what we have here. So the last paragraph of this way or street definition says, a public or private way shall not be deemed a way or a street relative to any lot that does not have rights of access to and passage over said way, or any lot that cannot use that way as an access. That's paragraph D. All right, so that's kind of where we are. And I'll take any comments from other members of the board on any of these points, what you've been thinking and what you've been reading, and try to come to a resolution here.
Jason, I can speak if you like.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I went over there this afternoon just to get the latest and see if anything had changed. So I drove in with my smaller than average car, partway down the packed gravel, and there was a average size sedan coming the other direction. We could not pass. One or both of us had to back up. I'm not sure what criteria that would be listed under, but it seems as a practical matter, this is not the kind of access I would like to have for first responders. My second comment is there is a paved section after the packed gravel, and I went down and parked on that, probably in front of number 4, and walked in, and there's a gravel section laid out and a little stub driveway that goes off to the left as you're coming in. It abruptly stops, and there's a large stone set there. And it's a good thing, because if you didn't have the large stone, you would go off a cliff. This is some kind of crazy driveway. I don't know what that says for the frontage here, but as a practical matter, this just looks unworkable to me.
Okay.
Your witness.
Anybody else? Peter?
Sure, let me chime in, Jason. So the town of Rockport has set up review standards under the zoning ordinance, and there are 7 components of the review standards, and I'm just going to go through each and every one of them. The roadway surface must generally be a minimum of 16 feet in width, of bituminous concrete or some other road surface, gravel, porous paving surface, etc., that is passable in all weather conditions and won't significantly deteriorate with drainage and freezing. So at the time of inspection, my inspection, recent placement of and compaction of gravel may address this winter and stormwater conditions. Can it be conditioned? Perhaps it could be. But this was further supported by our fire chief, Keating. That's point number 1. Point number 2, the current adequacy of or need for stormwater drainage along the roadway is adequately addressed in the application materials, and its adequacy for future development possible. Future development. That can be conditioned. So that's point number 2. Point number 3 is the minimum width is reduced to 16 feet only in isolated sites and due to an immovable natural feature. The recorded right-of-way is 20 feet wide, so I think we're covered. There may be a pinch point somewhere on the existing Gull Cove Lane roadway, but that's already accessed by other occupants and homeowners on Gull Cove Lane. Point number 4, the maximum grade of the roadway shall not exceed 14% at any point. I believe that Williams and Sparagus, the applicant's engineer, has stated that that condition is met. But I think, we could discuss that further perhaps. Number 5, the number of existing and potential lots on the way. Well, the number of lots was established by subdivision back in the 1930s or 40s. Physical barriers prohibit extension of the way or creation of additional lots, except perhaps by subdivision of existing lots under an A&R. Number 6, sightlines for planned uses that meet the standards of AASHTO. There's no determination made here, but I think precedent has been established by existing residences on Gull Cove Lane. Number 7, a minimum of a 20-foot wide right-of-way as required in the zoning bylaw. We're in compliance there based on the recorded plans. And number 8, the results of a site visit to verify conditions is described in the application for way street determination. I think we've all stated that we've made our individual site visits. I made mine in last month. So from my perspective, I support the applicant's request for determination of adequacy of a way. I've completed a review of the various recorded plans and deeds going back to 1935. It's quite clear, as you've previously stated, that the recorded deeds for not just lot number 1, also now referred to as 6 Gull Cove Lane, but also for lots 1, 2, and 3, and 4 on the plan recorded in July 26th of 1937 at plan number 198 in the year of 1937. Grant inalienable rights to the then owners and all future owners of said lots, a right of way is depicted on the plan. In addition, we have I think a judicial finding, I forget the exact year, was it 2008, let's say, that confirms those rights to owners of lots 1, 2, and 3, and 4, the current day owners of 71 and 75 Granite Street, parties who are represented by Attorney Howe this evening, in opposition to the applicant's request. So which way is this going to go? Are we going to approve an application under some mechanism? I'm not even convinced the A&R is the way to do it, but be that as it may, it's here before us. Or are we effectively going to eliminate a right-of-way that has existed since at least 1935 and benefits at least a handful of existing homeowners on Gull Cove Lane and Granite Street?
Okay, thank you, Harry. Peter, do you have any thoughts, or you want me to go, or you can go? It's up to you.
I apologize. My computer problem is I'm not looking at the drawings now. When I first, I think it's interesting that there's an existing Gull Cove Lane that I think, Tom, you experienced before the portion that we're actually looking at, which in many ways looks more like a driveway than a road. And the one thing that holds it back is it doesn't have enough frontage on the current half of Gull Cove Lane to just be a proper piece of property abutting Gull Cove Lane. It needs to bring itself down just to get the frontage primarily. Otherwise, they'd be fine with the driveway and nobody would be worrying about this. It also seems, and when I was there was some vehicles parked on the right. So it looks like it is a bit of an amenity for the people on the other side of the street right now as a gravel drive. And as the newest person, I guess, on this panel, I was a little disconcerted to read. The way I read it is we're just asked to come in and weigh in on the adequacy of the lane, not on the adequacy of the design of the lane, but that somehow the lane can be improved. And we've seen it happen once already since the first time we went out and the second and third times I went out. It's been improved, so it's getting closer. So I don't know where we stand in terms of our ability to just wait until it's improved, and only then can we weigh in on the adequacy of it, or can we say at this point in time it doesn't look like it can be approved? So I don't know if.
Is that a
I have an opinion
question?
on it. That's a question, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think the idea is to look at it, in as it stands now, just like before when the application was first submitted. And there was no improvement at all.
Right,
It was
and the tree
grass,
was in the
There
middle.
was a tree, and it was clear that it may be on paper, it may have been a right of way, but in the physical qualities of it were not anywhere near being usable. So that's really what we're looking at. We're not looking at, gee, could this be improved? Of course, this could be improved. Of course, there could be it could be widened. Of course, a cul-de-sac might be able to be put there to allow for turnaround. But that's not what we're looking at. We don't have I don't think that's not in what we're required to look at. We're not engineers. We're not looking at this as engineers. So, yeah, I think that's pretty clear.
Yeah, when I look at it just from a design point of view, I think there's no question you could build an adequate lane there. You could build it out of great materials. There's plenty of room there, with the exception of turning around. And I just don't see how it can create a space you can go in and turn around. Tenant owners could go into a structure and turn around, but not a vehicle in the street.
Okay, is that all you have to say at this point?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. All right, I've got a few things to talk about. I've actually spent quite a bit of time looking at this, trying to, do the right thing, be fair to everybody, and, because that's my job. Our job as the board is to do the right thing. And, one of the reasons we have subdivision approval is because to allow for the improvement of, ways that have fallen into disuse and would not satisfy an A&R standard, but might satisfy, if they were reconfigured or reconstructed or widened or whatever, they could be an adequate road for a particular lot or lots. Because that's important, obviously, for the development of the town, for the safety of the town, for the, safety of the residents of the town. And so I have a few things I want to talk about. First thing I want to just address, because I'm not going to make this the be all and end all, but I am a little concerned about the standing of the signs still, even with the document that was submitted on their behalf after I first raised that issue, which was their contract, I believe, expired with Tyrone. Their contract expired by its terms in November of 2020, and now we're in 2022. I brought that to Bob Bisnick's attention. He submitted an extension, what was called an extension agreement, which extended paragraph, I think it was 22, which is the government approval paragraph, which extended that paragraph to sometime in 2023. But, being a lawyer, I guess I'm a lawyer, and I think, wow, how can you extend a provision of a contract when the contract itself has already expired with no additional consideration, at least on the face? And my understanding is that you can't, that if a contract has expired, meaning it's over, you can't just by agreement with but the parties extend one provision of that contract beyond the term of the contract. You can try, but I don't know if it would be effective. But I'm not gonna. That's a technical issue that is not. I'm not going to raise, but it does bring concern, because one of the things we want to make sure of in the town when someone applies for any kind of a permit before any board, that they have standing to do so, meaning they have an interest in the property that is in question, that they just can't do this because they want to see what will happen later and then decide what they want to do. They have to have some kind of an interest, either ownership or contractual interest in the property. My other concern here was the issue of frontage. And I'm looking at what was actually constructed since between the time of the April application and the time of the later one, I think in August. Where the applicants have improved the surface of this way, it's, and someone pointed out there's a little jog to the left, which goes to the left. There is a very, very steep drop off there. I mean, in other words, you can't drive from that portion of the improved surface onto the lot that's in question. If you did, your car would drop about 5 or 6 feet. So in my view, that difference in elevation between the lot and the actual way doesn't provide frontage. It's not frontage. It would be the same as if the lot were 10 feet higher than the way. Would anybody seriously say, well, that way is frontage for that lot, even though there was no way physically to drive from that lot to the way? And I mean, that's what we have here. I don't think there's any, I don't see how anybody can seriously say that you could drive from that frontage into that lot with your car. You can't. And you might as well have a guardrail there. It's kind of the same, the analogy would be that. The third thing is that I read the statement from the fire chief, Kirk Keating. I met Kirk Keating on the site. This is a couple of months ago, or maybe, a couple of months ago. I met him there to see what his thinking was at that point. And I actually asked him to be at the meeting tonight just to tell us what his thinking was on this, but unfortunately he said he couldn't make it. I can say that when I met him and we discussed it, and I was very interested in what he had to say, he was very, very hesitant to say that this way, in the way it is now, provided was sufficient for emergency vehicles. What Kirk said was that his thought was that if you could drive a fire truck, keep on going, basically down the way, bearing to the left, down toward Gull Cove, and you could go around and basically make a big circle, you could bring that emergency vehicle back to the site again. But in terms of, short of doing that, where you had to actually stop a vehicle and then try to turn it around and get back out, he said, he kind of shook his head and said, I don't think so. So, I think giving that what it is, and I can tell you from my experience driving down there, and I have a 4-wheel drive truck, I could only turn around this is on the improved surface now, this is after it's been improved. I could only turn around after backing up when I put it in all-wheel drive. I could not turn around in 2-wheel drive. Now, this is a way that's supposed to service not only emergency vehicles, and being on the ambulance squad, I'm aware of what's involved there, but also fuel delivery trucks, Amazon delivery trucks, UPS trucks, all those types of vehicles, which are not, which are delivery vehicles. They're not all-wheel drive vehicles. It would be very, very difficult situation. And this isn't in the winter or in February or where we have ice or snow or anything like that. Okay, The other observation that I made was I looked at the history of this and you know, to Bob Visnick, my credit to him on this, and also to Ms. Howe. They provided lots of history and lots of deeds, and it's a confusing mess down there with all the deeds that went out and everything. But one thing that is, as I said earlier, this is deeded. It's in the deeds. There's no argument about that. But what happened here in 2008, or there's a court decision, and you know, I wanted to read that carefully because in my experience, when you have factual resolutions or factual findings in court decisions, those are binding. You know, those are not something you can say should be different or changed. And what I saw from the decision, I think it was Samus versus Tyrone, I think was the name. It was a case where Tyrone, who's the current owner of the property now that is the subject of this application, they were arguing that this way was in fact not to be used by anybody but them. That was their argument, that they had the sole and exclusive right to use this. It can't be used by anybody, and that the ease or the rights of the other parties, the other adjoining property owners, had been extinguished. So that, I mean, if you're saying that this is a way that's used by motor vehicles, basically by anybody who drives down there, this is really an inconsistent position with that position. In other words, to say this is ours, nobody else has a right to use it, no adjoiners have a right to use it, and that was their position. They lost that case. The judge ruled, no, you didn't. These adjoining owners have a right to use this because it's in their deeds too, and their rights were not extinguished by anything that was done. But one thing the court did note was that there were, you know, there was brush and there was a tree in part of this and brush in another part of it. So what does that tell me, at least? It tells me that this was not, as late as this decision was issued, this was not an active road used by motor vehicles. Because if you've got trees and brush and someone arguing that it's been abandoned, it clearly was not being used as a traveled way as recently as the 1980s. And I don't think there's any proof that it was being used as a traveled way by anybody after this court decision was rendered. So where are we here? I think that I would say that this, in my view, this is not, does not fit the criteria for what a way or street or an A&R should meet. I recognize Harry's recitation of the standards that are in the law, but those standards are minimum standards. They're not exclusive. And I think for the reasons that I've mentioned, I'm sure this could be improved to the point where it could be used for safely and adequately for vehicular traffic. But it's not as it stands now in the moment, it is not there. And that is the entire purpose of an A&R designation, is that you have that way that can be used safely and adequately for vehicular traffic. This is essentially a 500 plus feet road that has no outlet, zero. So there's no way to turn around when you get to the end of it. And other than what all of us have done when we drove down there and tried to back up and turn around to get out. That, in my view, should not be a standard that the town of Rockport creates for the adequacy of its ways. It's just inadequate. It doesn't provide a way to turn around and adequately get in and out of this very narrow road that, this would just continue it more. So anyway, that's my view. I think I've covered everything. Yeah. I would vote to not to deny this application. Not to say that the applicant or somebody else could not seek to create improvements that would comply with the Rockport subdivision requirements for a road, but not the way this is now. It's not sufficiently adequate. Okay.
So if I may rebut.
You can rebut me if you want, sure.
Sure. So I'm sourcing now the A&R handbook,
Yeah,
which I have open now.
yeah, which I've read too.
And this is page 5, and this is at the end of the Reddig case that it has been, I think, referred to before. But the A&R was what came out of subdivision control law to assist towns and municipalities. But I'm just going to read the last 4 sentences of that section on page 5. It's halfway down the page. The court found that to be entitled to the A&R endorsement, when a plan shows proposed building lots, well, in this case, we have actual lots. You can argue whether they're buildable or not. Abutting a previously approved way, such way must be built. And perhaps, what I might emphasize here is the previously approved way. I don't know if we have an approved way here or not, but such way must be built.
We don't have an approved way.
Yeah.
There's no approved way here.
We just have a right of way.
Yeah,
We
but
correct.
we have a right of way that was granted, but there's no previously approved way. That's a major distinction here.
But just allow me to finish this one
Sure,
sentence.
go ahead.
Such way must be built, or the assurance exists that the way will be constructed in accordance with specific municipal standards, period. So there seems to be some language, there seems to be some ability to get to the end point under a reasonable application. I just think the elements are here of a reasonable application. Is the existing condition less than ideal? Absolutely. It doesn't meet any AASHTO standard at all. But is there a way to create improvements that meet arguably an existing need, not to mention a future need, because you already have a handful of residents on Gull Cove Lane who are serviced by a way, a 20-foot right of way that has a 90-degree turn in it, has an absolute dead end, and no wherewithal for Amazon delivery trucks or emergency vehicles to turn around. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. No, I look, I appreciate what you're saying. But this part of that, the existing way, which ends at 4 Gull Cove, this part of it was not in any way, shape, or form a use for vehicular traffic. And it just wasn't. I mean,
That we're aware of.
oh, well, I mean, I've looked at I read the affidavits. The
Yeah,
ones,
I know. I'm just,
it was people walked on it. They used skis on it. They did all kinds of stuff like that, but no one drove vehicles on it. And the other, I have to say that, talking to Kirk Keating, he was, his big thing was the ability to go through down to Gull Cove with the vehicle and come around and not have to try to make a 3-point turn at that location. It's, that's, yeah. So,
Jason, could I comment on that last point?
yeah,
If you're talking about being eventually having to have the way extend all the way down the hill to the bottom, just like you can't stop being a lawyer, I can't stop being an engineer. I look at that slope. I don't see any way you could meet the slope standards.
well, look, I'm not saying that is going to happen or has to happen. But again, I'm just looking at, and I think Kirk was looking at what is there now. And not, he was hypothesizing that would be whether legally it can be done or engineering wise, I don't know, but he was hypothesizing that would be the way to do it. But when we look at the standard here on Subway Street, and also, our council's own opinion, which I circulated a while ago, and just again, more recently about this, because this isn't just us. I mean, we've asked council to look at this, and obviously her opinion carries, significant weight. But this was not in existence as any kind of a road to be driven on in, as far as I can see, July 14th, 1951, or any time after that, and certainly not 1980, when 20 some odd years ago, no more than 20 years ago, 1980 something, that's 40 years ago, when that court decision was decided. I mean, that court decision gave me a snapshot of, okay, this is what this portion of this road was like in the 1980s, and it was clearly not used for anything other than pedestrian traffic 40 years ago. And that's what it's been used for up till recently. So those are the facts that I've learned, and I have nothing against someone creating a lot, developing property. They do it all the time, but in this particular case, it's highly problematic. So, do we want to take a vote?
I think we need to.
Yeah, okay. Anybody have a motion? Nobody wants to make a motion? Motion to approve?
That's the appropriate
I'll make the motion to approve.
The motion would be a motion to
As
approve,
presented.
yeah. As submitted, okay. Harry makes a motion. Anybody want to second that?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded. We'll take a roll call vote. Peter,
No.
Harry,
Yay.
Tom,
Nay.
and I'll vote no too. That's a three no's, 1 in favor. The application is denied. Thank you, folks. Not easy, not an easy decision, I'll tell you that. But okay. Unless there's anything further anybody wants to add about this, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Okay, next item. Site plan review and permit for both for excavation. We'll take these together because they're 4 and 5, but they're totally related, for the 96 Granite Street and 175 Granite Street. Anybody here on this application?
I have a hand from Michael, Jason.
Michael,
I'm not sure. I'll let him unmute himself. Michael, can you state your name and address and affiliation, please?
Sure. My name is Michael Rossio. I'm the owner of both properties.
Okay. Are you here on your own, Mr. Rossi? I see who I think is your lawyer here too.
Jeff Angley should be here as well.
I'm right here, Mr. Chairman. I think I was muted, so.
Yeah, well, you're unmuted now.
So my name's Attorney Jeffrey Angley, Fulton Angley in Boston. I represent the applicant on both of these site plan review special permit applications.
Okay, do you want to tell us about these applications? And then I think we all probably have some questions or comments.
Sure. So I understand this to be kind of an introductory meeting, not a public hearing. So
It is not
I'll
a
give you-
public hearing. We're just, no.
to give you a brief introduction. So let's start with the removal of the cut material. So my client, through an entity called Yankee Clipper LLC, owns a property at 96 Granite Street in Rockport. There's an inn on that property. That property has it's two parcels merged together. So there's some land to the right as you're facing the property from the street. And in that location, we're looking to extract about 2,100 cubic yards of material. Largely the purpose of that is to take that material and bring it down to another site owned by my client located at 175 Granite Street, which is the old Cape Ann Tool Company site. And the reason why we want to do that is that there's material that we would like to add to the site at 175 Granite Street in order to bring up the grades, get the water, get the property away from some rising tides and inundation from the sea. This is some land there, which is land subject to coastal storm flowing. There's a building there that's been damaged by the ocean. So we have been to the Rockport Conservation Commission. We got approval for work at the site at 175 Granite Street. And so there we have a second application for a special permit site plan review. And both of these applications are under section 12 of the Rockport zoning bylaw. And there at the 175 Granite Street site, we're looking to bring approximately 4,500 cubic yards of fill material to that site to raise the site and level the site to put it to some productive use. So that's the essence. And so on behalf of both of these applications, our office submitted an application and a legal memoranda. And in those memoranda, we went through both the procedural criteria and the substantive criteria for the grant of special permits under both of these applications. So I am happy to go through those. I'm happy to answer questions before I go through them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've got some questions, but maybe you want to just keep on going if you want.
Sure, yeah, sure. So let's take the removal, which is up at 96 Granite. So there, the bylaw has procedural criteria that have to be met. The plan has to be filed. And so we had an engineer, BSC Group, did the work for us. They prepared a cut plan. It shows, we believe, meets all the criteria under the planning board, under the zoning bylaw for demonstrating, what the grades are, what the topography is, what the finish, what the grade will be, what the finished slope will be, how the material is going to be removed from the site. And so if the board has any questions about the technical components of the plan, happy to discuss that or review it. If not, I would say that the bylaw has a pretty clear set of criteria for what happens after the site. And so once the materials are removed, there has to be a restoration. We intend to comply completely with the bylaw that we'll leave it at a 2-to-1 slope after the extraction is complete, and the site will be graded and seeded, loamed and seeded and restored. With respect to the specific criteria under the bylaw, the first is that the proposed fill won't create negative impacts on the area, and we believe that we do meet that criteria. Here, The site will be properly stabilized upon completion. It's going to be graded out and seeded. Surface runoff and erosion are all controlled on the site. We have filter socks around the entire property. There's a drainage basin at the on the Granite Street. We intend to prevent sediment from going into that drainage basin with a filter basket. We believe that the project will not impair public safety. We're taking this gravel down only about a third of a mile from 96 Granite to 175 Granite. By my estimation, we have good sight lines in both directions, 485 feet to the north and 350 feet to the south. And it's going to be a pretty quick removal. They estimate about 20 days to complete the entire extraction process at 96 Granite Ave. With respect to the requirement under the bylaw that the project be in harmony with existing landscapes, we believe that we're going to be improving that. There's a very steep ridge that runs through this property. We're going to be leveling that out, creating a little bit of usable property that will remain, and we're going to be increasing site views for the abutters. And we do have letters from most of the abutters in support of this application. We believe that all of the abutters, even the ones that we don't have letters from, that have been spoken to, and we believe we've spoken to all of them, are supportive of this application. And we think that when the site is finished and loamed and seeded and finished being graded, it'll be in conformity with the area, with the lots around it. There'll be no municipal resources that are impaired. It's just not going to be impacted in any way. And we believe that the removal of the materials is not going to impair the character of the area. It'll make it really fairly consistent, the kind of open vistas, the nicely graded and sloped and grassed area. So that's the those are the criteria under the bylaw and for the extraction. And I can keep going, and we'll take questions about the cut. Whatever.
Yeah, well, why don't we stop there? Because does anybody have any questions about this part of this application for the extraction?
I just want to confirm the locus on 96 Granite Street. 96 Granite Street is to the west of Granite Street and not to the east of Granite Street. I think of the Yankee Clipper Inn being between Granite Street and the ocean.
That's right. So this is on the, not on the water side, on the landward side of Granite Street.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have a couple of questions, Mr. Angley. First of all, how much material do you anticipate, does your client anticipate extracting from this area 96 Granite?
So it'll be 2,100 cubic yards is the estimated amount of material that can be taken from
All
the
right.
site.
To me, as a layperson, that you could say 21 million and it wouldn't make any difference. But how many, if you take a large, what they call a 40-yard dump truck, and you assume that that's a full load, how many of these dump trucks, maybe this isn't a fair question for you at this point, but how many of those dump trucks would be needed to accommodate that material?
So I can say that I used to
answer
know
that
the
question.
answer. Yeah, I just know the answer, but I know that my
I can
client
answer that
definitely
question.
knows the answer. So I'm going to let him answer that.
Okay, this is Mr. Racio.
Right.
Okay.
Well, first off, you wouldn't use one of those big 40-yarder trucks to do this. We're going to be using a small dump truck that would hold maybe no more than 8 to 10 yards. All right.
Okay, well then, but I'm just
Yeah.
trying to get an idea.
So
of
if you have a small dump truck that holds 8 to 10 yards, and you divide it into 2,100 yards, that's about 210 trips.
Okay, 210 trips of a dump truck, and that's
And,
one.
and
way,
the
and
dump
then-
truck would be a little bit bigger than a regular pickup truck. Okay,
Yeah, okay.
it might be the size of a trash.
So,
And you said 20 days?
Yes,
20 days.
That's the,
So 10,
yeah,
so 10 a day?
something like that, yeah.
And,
Actually, probably, actually, we think it would probably take less than 20 days. And it would definitely be more than 10 a day. It would probably be more like 25 to 30 a day.
so, what, I've seen the parking lot, that's the excavation. It looks like a lot of things in this area, Pigeon Cove. There's a lot of granite, big granite pieces in there. What exactly are you going to be extracting?
Everything you see on that plan.
Those are like big pieces of granite. Is that what we're talking about?
No, it's ledge, and it'll come out pretty easily.
We're using what? Using
small
what kind of equipment? What?
A small excavator.
Oh, okay. So you won't have to use any kind of a hammer or even blasting, right?
No blasting whatsoever.
No, but I mean, I've seen these, you've seen them too, these hammers that, they have, a lot of them have tracks on them, and it's kind of like a giant jackhammer to get through that. You wouldn't be using that.
No, it's a small excavator. And if you look at what's
small? Hold on. I want to ask some questions here. So if one of the conditions of the permit was that no hammer be used in the excavation, you'd be okay with that?
Right.
Okay. And has anybody how does anybody know what's under the ground in this area? Has anybody done any testing or sampling or borings or anything like that?
I'd have to ask my team before I answer that question.
Okay, well,
And
then maybe that would be something I'd be interested in, because.
Well, I do know this, that there is no utility lines, there's no water lines, there's no sewer lines, which is what your bylaws ask us to identify.
Yeah, I know what our
None of that.
bylaws say, but also I have to say that that bylaw actually refers you back to the, I was going to mention this anyway, that refers you back to the site plan review bylaw too. And so it's not just the excavation bylaw that has to be complied with, it's also the site plan review bylaw that has to be complied with. And there's some additional requirements for site plan review that aren't shown on the maps that you have.
Like what?
Well, I don't want to get in a debate here. We'll do that later. We have a public hearing come up, but just look at plan contents, page 59, item 6. Just those are some of the things that have to be on there. But I think we would like to know what is being excavated. What is the nature of the material? And it seems that the only way to determine that would be to do some borings or samplings. So, because if this is just solid, this is primarily granite ledge, which when you look at it from the outside, this is a very tight area. There's not a lot of room for maneuvering equipment or anything, and it goes very steeply. And the other thing is, if you go around to the back of this area, there are a number of houses back there too that are going to obviously be affected by this activity. So it would be good to have on this plan the boundary lines of the property, where the excavation is going to take place in relation to the boundary lines, and then identify on the plan all the adjoining owners to the property, so we know who they are.
Okay, I'm respond to your question.
No.
Because I am going to respond because.
Well, then you're going to be
just indicate.
If you want to be. We're not getting in a, Mr. Angley, we're not getting in a debate here. I'm just saying,
Right.
I'm saying what to be this is supposed to be an informational session.
Right. And I'll do
Kind of.
my level best to answer your questions.
Yeah, I know, and you're doing fine, but your client seems to want to getting a jousting session, and I'm not.
Yeah, I think he's just a little loquacious, so
Yeah, no, I understand. that. Well,
let's,
that's
what-
one
what
good
else?
thing about Zoom is that can be ended quickly, and that's just.
yeah, I see.
So
So-
look, these are just some things this is an initial meeting.
Right.
I'm actually more concerned about the extraction, at least I am, than I am about the fill itself. It's the extraction part. Has anybody been in touch with the Department of Public Works about this proposed extraction?
I have not. I don't know whether Mr. Rossio has. We can find out. It looks like he's saying maybe he has.
Yeah, because it would be good to have some kind of communication from.
I can answer the question. I have.
Okay, good. It would be good to have some, because I noticed one of your plans showed something that's going to protect drainage or something. I forget. I don't have the plan in front of me right now. And I would assume that would be drainage that's maintained by the town of Rockport. So
That's true.
yeah, so it would be good to know
That's
that
incorrect.
the town is aware of this and to see what concerns, if any, then maybe they don't have any. Maybe they'll say, fine, go ahead.
Look, at the boundaries of the property are on the plan. Okay, the adjoining neighbors are on the plan.
Okay, maybe I didn't, maybe
Doing borings would be useless because we're not going down.
I'll take a look at the plan. I didn't see the adjoining owners on the plans. But
Yeah, I think, Mr. Chair, that we showed the lot lines. We didn't identify the individual owners, and we can certainly put that on the plan.
now, when you say the lot lines, is that an actual survey or is that like from a GIS?
So let me look, because it's looking to me like there's not a meets and bounds on those. It's just, I don't know exactly where the data came from. Oh, he says existing lines have been digitized from the Rockport GIS database. So that's the basis for the lot lines.
Do you know if there's any survey information?
No, I think there's not. If you look at, there's a note on the plan.
Yeah, Jason, if it uses my maps, it's not assessing quality data.
Yeah.
Which I
Say
believe is
that
the
again.
case.
Say that again, Robert.
The attorney mentioned that it was based on the online assessing GIS
Yeah.
database, and those are not survey grade lines. They're for
Okay.
reference only.
Is there any reason why we don't have survey grade lines?
They're just not accurate on that scale.
No,
which
but
is
I mean,
why-
I'm asking council why we don't.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an answer for you. I mean, if the bylaw requires additional data, then we'll supply it.
Okay, just curious about why.
Yeah, I
because-
mean,
I
all
mean,
this
this
stuff
is-
is great.
Look, if
whatever-
this was a big open field and you were saying we're gonna, pull this stuff out and then drive it, a quarter of a mile or whatever, and then dump it somewhere else to fill in. But it's in a very tight residential zoned area and it's gonna make noise and it's gonna make dust and there's gonna be traffic and all those things go along with excavation. So it's just the way it is,
Yeah,
So if it was in a different area, it wouldn't be of a concern, but it is a little bit of a concern.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty much, and I'll be happy to work with you, in between meetings
sure.
and talk more about this. Sure, absolutely. We're
Yep,
not,
that'd be great.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
and one last thing, and I'll just let you move on from here. Was I correct in stating earlier that in our conversation that this is kind of part of a larger plan to actually improve the site where the Cape Ann Tool Company is?
Well, right, I mean, the primary purpose of bringing that fill down, extracting the fill is to bring it down to 175 granite. And that, I suppose the big advantage to the town is that rather than having to import material from another town and drive it through the town, we can bring it just a very short distance on a single road and over a short period of time. So, but yes, you're right. The point is to bring this material to the old Cape Ann tool site.
Right, but what I mean is that this isn't gonna necessarily stop, these improvements aren't gonna necessarily stop by this excavation and then the placing it at the Cape Ann Tool site, that there could be a parking lot built there.
Oh.
After that, which
Oh,
would
I
be
see. What,
part of the reason for this, part of the reason for the fill there would be because there's a possibility of a parking lot being created there.
So-
That's what I understand from your architect's plans.
what, oh, well,
No?
yeah, I have not seen, the only architectural renderings that I've seen are down and at 175 Granite. So is that what you're referring to?
Well, no, I'm referring to the conversation I had earlier this week, Monday, actually, with the town building inspector, who said he received plans from the architect. I don't know who employed them, what company, but these were actually development plans for 175 Granite, and, you know, indicating that, hey, we want to, you know, this is something we want to revisit. I guess they had been submitted in 2016.
Yeah.
Nothing happened, but they want to revisit them now. So my question was, is this excavation and the depositing of this fill kind of the initial step in this redevelopment process?
It is the initial step.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was my question.
It
All right.
is. Yep.
Okay. I
Thank-
don't have anything more on this. Does anybody, on this excavation part, does anybody have anything?
Just one question in terms of, is it 175 or 76 Granite Street?
90, it's 96.
96 Granite Street. What's the benefit in removing the fill? In other words, will there be a larger parking area made available there as a result of the excavation?
Well, I think that that Mr. Rossi might have more info on that. I do know that opening up that area is going to give a little more room. There's an existing inn on that site too. And so I know that part of the goal is to be able to move some of, there's a big dumpster they want to be able to get out of sight, and that would go in that area. And Mr. Rossi may have more to add if he'd be inclined to unmute him. And he might be able to add a little bit more to what's going to happen at the 96 Granite Ave site after that excavation is complete.
Well, you could put that, could you add that to your narrative?
Sure.
That would be maybe the easiest way to deal with it.
Yeah, we're going to, this will enable us to move our dumpster and hide it from view from the street. And we operate also the Yankee Clipper Inn, the Bullfinch House, and the Quarter Deck. I own all three properties.
Yep.
Okay. And by the way, we are not out doing any sort of excavation. This is, we're not going down. All right. We're removing brush and debris and some rocks that are currently above the grade. Okay. And the suggestion that we would want to do some exploratory borings makes no sense because we're not going down.
Yeah, but this is what I don't understand is there are a lot of rocks, there's brush, there's debris, as you said. Is that the material you're going to use for your fill at 175, or are you going to use dirt or something? Or is that what your intention is? Or are you going to just throw a bunch of tree trunks and rocks and everything? Is that going to be your fill? I'm not quite clear about that.
We're going to take all that fill and bring it to 175 Granite Street. Now this will clean up that rear area, and the abutters are 100% behind this because this will clean up the area and improve sightlines. They have signed statements saying that they are
Yeah, well,
supportive.
that's good. I mean, that's why we have a public hearing too.
Yes, so I understand the chair's question. I will respond with a little supplemental narrative.
Yeah, I just, it's just I see what you're talking about, Mr. Rassio. There's a lot of brush and rocks. I wouldn't say clean it up. I mean, it's like your basic scrub area in Rockport. It's got small trees, it's got rocks, it's got brush. And I just wanted to kind of get a picture of, is that the material the stuff that we can see on the ground now, is that the material that's going to be used for the fill at 175 granite, or are you talking about stuff that's underneath that would, be a little less contaminated, so to speak, with all this other stuff? That's what I'm
Of
trying.
course, we're not going to be using the brush or the trees as fill. Those will turn into firewood. Okay. What's going all over this 175 Granite Street is soil, rock. And if you go take a close look at what's there now, it's not solid rock. It's all cracked and striated. It'll come out very, very easily.
Okay, well,
Okay, now the question also came up about whether or not there's enough room to have an excavator there. We own small excavators that would go in there and will do this work. There's no problem doing that work. And we use small vehicles to move the material down to 175 Granite Street. This is stuff that we've done many times before. This is easy to do. And it'll be done very quickly. And we've gone over all of this with our neighbors, and our neighbors are 100% supportive. So if they're supportive, why wouldn't you be?
Well,
it's all what they know about, so let's.
so
I have one more question. If I may. You reference using 8 and 10-yard dumps. Why wouldn't you use a 10-wheeler or a tri-axle where you're able to carry 20 yards in a load and reduce the number of trips?
This is simply not enough room for that vehicle.
Okay.
Okay, we have, if you look on the plans, we have areas where the vehicles enter both properties. And those are like wash areas as well, okay? We have to use an appropriately sized vehicle in order to do this work.
What's a small excavator? Give me an example of a model that you would use.
Less than 10 tons.
John Deere or Komatsu,
Yeah, but how would you describe it?
10 ton,
If I wanted 10, how much?
10 ton.
10-ton excavator?
Yeah.
We're talking excavators here, not dump trucks. Okay.
That's good. You Google a 10-ton excavator online, you can see what the size is.
Okay. All right. Any other questions about 96 before we go to 175?
And again, also, this will finish up in 96. This will beautify that area. Right now, it's a mess. It's all disheveled. And this will make it much nicer. It'll neater, and it'll actually, and our neighbors, 2 of them will end up with water views. And they're excited.
Look, I know your neighbors, I'm sure when we come to a public hearing, will be very happy to tell us how thrilled they are with what you're proposing to do. And that's the reason for the public hearing. So let's go to 175.
Jason, before you go to that, it's sounding like this is part of a larger project that would require site plan review. And I'm wondering if we have a case of segmentation here.
Well, we did talk about that. As you know, that I practiced law in New York for many years, and segmentation was a no-no in New York when it came to projects, but apparently in Massachusetts, it's not. I actually have a question posed to our town council about this. It would seem to me that it would make sense to do all this at the same time, because let's have the excavation, the fill, the parking lot, whatever else, just do it all in one. Now we're going to have, public hearings and everything.
Yeah.
If that's legal, if it's legal, then they can do it,
Yeah,
What if phase A creates a hardship for phase B? That's my concern.
Yeah. So I would say, just generally in response to that, we have 2 separate special permit filings because it's 2 separate properties. That's why you have 2 filings. One special permit goes with one property, one goes with the other. But as to 175, which is what I think you're referring to, if there, I'm happy to talk to the chair about this offline. I'm happy to, I know that Mr. Rossi has spoken to the building inspector. I think that there have been some questions raised about, is there any other site plan review that's required? Happy to look at that. I mean, segmentation isn't a thing in Massachusetts, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to come back multiple times. The goal will be to do it in one shot, because as the chair suggested, really the real important piece here is trying to get this property at 175, the old Cape Ann Tool Company, back to just a really high productive commercial mercantile use. And the first thing that we have to do is really where we started at the Conservation Commission. So if you read my memo, we couldn't do anything until we got approvals from the Conservation Commission to raise a seawall to elevation 15, because that seawall has elevations as low as 8. We're getting water inundation into the site. The buildings are getting damaged and the site isn't usable. And so the first thing is to raise the seawall, and then we are going to put some material in some areas behind that seawall around the buildings to level the site. And then we are installing painting walls at the site, and we're going to be putting more fill behind those. So the end result is going to be a viable site. So that's why. So phase 1 was getting the wetland permits, which we have. And now we're coming to you folks because we have to get permission to bring the fill in, because it's more than 300 cubic yards. And so I'm happy to talk about that now. I'm talking a lot. So let's say, first of all, so we gave you another plan, which is the fill plan for 175 Granite. I believe it meets all the criteria, but I will look if the criteria of the bylaw requires that we have surveyed lot lines, then you'll have surveyed lot lines. It's not a problem at 175 because that is a fully surveyed site. And there's been huge amounts of work done on that site. So the plans are very, very detailed. You've got full topo on that site. And because that site has already gone through the permitting with the Conservation Commission, there was existing drainage on the site. The plan shows all the existing drainage. We've upgraded some of that drainage working with DEP. And so, that site will end up being, we hope, a very, good, viable site. And so what I'd like, with respect to that, then, we estimate about 4,500 cubic yards of fill. So more fill. It's not all coming from 96. There's going to have to be some fill imported. But the purpose of that fill is to raise the grade in the area, raise the grade in certain areas. Raise it. On that site, there's an 850-foot long, linear foot long seawall. Working with the Conservation Commission and DEP, who had concerns, and the community had some concerns about elevating the seawall across the entire span of the site. We worked with the Conservation Commission and its consultants, and we have done away with the idea of raising it across the whole site. So some parts of that site are going to take inundation from the ocean and then wash back out to the ocean. But there are certain sites, areas, the parts of the site that we need to protect, and that's where the fill comes in. And so I don't have the plan up, but I could show you, and maybe at the public hearing, we can show you the exact locations where the fill is going to go. But it comes out about 4,500 cubic yards, and that fill is going in areas needed to level the site. Because as to that site, if you folks, I'm sure there's folks, look, I don't live in your town, so I just kind of look at the pictures online. I've been up there a couple of times, but there's these very long old steel buildings that run along Breakwater Ave and Granite Street. And so the bulk of those buildings are coming down. And the buildings that are remaining are the buildings that you see on the fill plan, because that fill plan shows you what's going to be left. And it shows a little parking area. And so that parking area is going to be part of the area where there's going to be some fill put in. There's some retaining walls that you'll see on that fill plan. That's where material is going to go. And and as I say, it's just to be able to make the land usable, because the seawall isn't high enough. It's inconsistent heights across the site, and water is infiltrated behind the seawall. The concrete's all broken up. We're getting water coming in behind. There's some concerns about, damage to the seawall. So we're trying to get that shored up and fixed, so we get the water, not have the water go behind the wall. And so that's kind of the overview of it. I can go through the criteria. I did put it in my memo, but.
Oh, if it's in your memo, Jeff,
Yeah.
we can read that. It's not very long.
Yeah.
A little, you had your hand up, Harry, before this is just a housekeeping thing. Is there any way of, and we've gotten this before where we have, one of the maps shows the existing conditions.
Yeah.
And you have them, but they're very faint. And they're under, they're on the same document as the the fill and the excavation. If we could actually have two separate maps, so they're not just a faint overlay, but they actually say, okay, this is what it looks like now, and this is where the fill will be later. That's all.
Yeah. And so actually, there's a full set of plans that we'll file with the Concom and with DEP. And I think we should just submit them in, because that has a full existing conditions plan on it. And I think that, it's got some wetland areas on it that maybe you wouldn't be concerned about, but certainly there's an existing conditions plan as part of that, like 6-page sheet. Yep.
Okay.
Happy to send that up.
Same thing with the 96 too, if you have it.
Yeah, so that I don't know that we have an existing conditions plan on that, which is probably why we didn't have the meets and bounds on the lot lines too, but yeah. But see what we can do.
Harry, wait, Harry had a question.
Yeah, Attorney Angley, you mentioned the importation of fill. I'm imagining then, given some of the information that was shared earlier relative to parking, there's going to be the importation of structural fill to properly support a paved area on that southern end of the site.
Yeah, probably not, because this site has started getting filled in the 1820s. And over the course of about 120 years, up until 1941, authorizations have been granted by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to fill and build seawalls across that site. So there's solid fill already on that site. And then it was paved over with either concrete or asphalt. And so my understanding is, from talking to my client, that there are areas where there's existing pavement that would need to take fill on it now would be broken up, and then the fill would be put over it. But there's good solid fill underneath that site, because that entire site that is owned by my client is was huge amounts of fill.
Definitely, you should be in touch with the DPW, because if you're importing fill and, it sounds like it's going to be substantial, you're going to be using the roads to do that.
Right.
I think you need to let them know, and especially them, how much fill is going to be brought in on the roads of Rockport from other locations.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question about the flood zones. Is the intent of the fill to change the FEMA classification of this property away from having any AE zones?
No, it's not an AE zone, actually, because the wave action is so suppressed by the very large municipally constructed revetments and the breakwaters that are built into the harbor's mouth, because the direction of the prevailing waves come in from the east. You don't get wave action in the harbor. What you're getting is rising tides and some wind that will push water up onto the site. So the VEs, it's not a VE zone. And the point is not to change the classification. It's to protect the land, and that's why we were allowed to elevate the seawall in the places necessary to protect the buildings that are going to remain. And the sites, the places where there aren't buildings, we were just going to let the ocean inundate, in a big storm.
Well, you just said it's not a VE zone, and I said it was an AE zone, so.
Oh, AE, I'm sorry. I saw you said VE. Yeah, so I think AE might be right, and I think I have the designations. I have to go look at my Concom filing, or maybe it's noted on the Concom plan, but, and so I'll check. I think you're right.
AE zones have waves below 3 feet, if I'm not
Below 3 feet.
mistaken. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, this was a matter, a topic of discussion at the Concom. We actually, had a study done about wave action in Pigeon Cove. And so there was a whole analysis of that done, which was sufficient to get the commission to support the elevation of the seawall.
So where I was going is whether FEMA regulations allow using fill to change the zone under a building.
But so the building is not, the building is the buildings are staying where they are. And the fill is coming behind the seawall to level the grade level with the street. It's my understanding. Now, those are steel structures, so I'm almost at the limit of my ability to talk cogently about this stuff. Maybe I need my client or an engineer to discuss it, but there's no effort here to change the FEMA flood zone.
And no buildings will be on the fill.
No buildings will be on fill,
Okay, all right,
except the buildings that are there already,
correct. Well, that's not on fill, not on new fill.
not on new fill.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, seems like we've got a little more to go here before we get to the point where we do a public hearing. What's your, Jeff, what's your pleasure with this? I mean, you've answered a lot of questions tonight. You might, maybe want to go back and certainly be in touch with the DPW, look at.
I'd like to,
Well, wait, Mr. Ratio, you got a lawyer here that's speaking on behalf of your companies. So let him speak. Okay.
I'll speak when I want to speak, okay? Look at
No, because usually when people have attorneys, their attorneys do the talking for them. So Mr. Angley, do you want to talk about going forward?
Sure. So you've given us some things to think about. I do want to check in with our engineers about the survey work and what additional data we can come up with for the 96 site. And I will go back and I will review the site plan review materials for all these plans. And I think that I do want to speak with you if possible offline, and perhaps with the building inspector about if any other site plan review is needed for the 175 Grand Street site, and make sure that we're going to do it all in one fell swoop.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. And we're definitely, everybody wants to work with you, and at the same time, obviously wants to make sure that the residents of the town are protected.
Yeah.
The idea of improving this site and, which is kind of an eyesore now, it's a good idea. So.
okay, you guys had a question regarding the parking.
Regarding what?
I don't think we need to talk about that yet. It's a little
I
early.
think you raised a question, and I think I should help you answer it.
I didn't raise that question.
What is it? What do you want to talk
Yeah,
about?
they had a question regarding parking at the KPM tool site, and whether
I
or not
don't-
you guys.
They
Review parking.
didn't ask about that. I think I think we should, I think we should.
I think we should discuss it. And I think
No,
we
I
should,
don't think so. You know, I don't think we should. I don't think we need to at this point. It's very premature.
Okay.
And, you know,
we had a discussion with the building inspector.
we've got other business to deal with too. So I think we're done unless you have something else you want to bring up to the board about this that we haven't discussed already, then, you know, and I can talk with, Jeff, I can talk with you offline anytime, you know?
I just think that would be more, you know, more productive because, you know, the building inspector had spoken to Mr. Rossio about parking at 175, and I would like to have a chance to speak to him and with you about it too.
Yeah, well, sure. Yeah, I mean, look, you can speak to him anytime the building.
Yeah.
when you want. Oh, that's,
But you know, if we need site plan review because of any parking areas, then we'll put that. I mean, it would be smart to do that. We would just add that now. So in one public hearing, hopefully we could address everything.
well, that would kind of be a good thing, is to have one public hearing, address all the things that are required, and, you know, would be to everyone's benefit, I think. And then the public would also get a fuller picture of the entire project here, you know?
Yeah.
So, okay,
Great. Well, thank you very much, everybody.
thank you. We'll be in touch.
Okay.
Bye, Mr. Rassio. Okay, I think we've taken care of 4 and 5. So member items, anybody have any member items?
I wish our town administrator had stayed online here. I wanted to talk about this email that came out from MEMA, the capability and capacity building funding availability. So there's $2 million being made available to the state for various purposes that seems to fit right into our basket in Rockport.
Yeah, Harry, that's something the DPW is actively aware of. I'm out on vacation next week and we have some people in our office out, but it is something we're planning on looking at, not this coming week, but the following week. And if you do notice anything like this in the future, I'd love if you could send it to us at the DPW as well, because most often these affect things that we either directly or indirectly manage. And obviously we love grants whenever they're available.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I think as a community, we could be much more effective than we historically have been at securing free money. Thanks.
Yeah.
Tom.
Anybody have any other member items?
One thing I can mention, at the select board meeting Tuesday, they announced there will be a listening session for residents about Long Beach. And unfortunately, that is exactly at the same time as our next meeting on the 17th at 6:30. So it kind of puts a dent in planning board participation. If you don't need me for quorum, perhaps I could go to that one.
We're pretty slim pickings right now.
Yeah,
Won't that session be recorded?
so much for input. If it's recorded, I
Well, I
won't
thought
be
it was a
there.
listening session.
I'd like to say something.
Well, then that's not listening.
The board is listening.
Oh.
Well, wait a minute, maybe I got it all wrong. The board wants the residents to listen.
Who's
Okay, I
listening?
get it now.
Who's doing the listening? Denise?
The Board of Selectmen will be listening to residents.
Ah, okay.
All
Get
right.
it backwards.
So I mean, you know, look, if we've got 3 people who I'm available, does anybody else have an issue with that? We're not going to be here. We're trying, you know, we got to get another member. That's the main thing. And but yeah, if everybody else is going to be here and can say now that they're going to be here, then I guess Tom can be excused, you know.
God willing, I'll be there.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
plan to be there.
Yeah. All right. Well, then there's 3.
Unless somebody needs to recuse.
Don't conjure up situations, okay?
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for bringing that up. All right, there aren't any other member items. We have another public comment.
I did have, the
Oh,
CPC is going to meet on the 15th. They're going to have a community workshop. And I think there's some concern that, there's not enough applications. It's kind of be a workshop on how to do it. So I think all we're trying to do is
What date is that?
Tuesday, the 15th.
What time?
I think it's at 6.
Very good.
But Phil Crotty is putting a announcement on the website, I think today, maybe.
Great, okay. Maybe we'll apply for something,
More grants, right?
right?
We had just seen in the Gloucester Times that they got, they used some of it to do their IT for the seaport, which was, we couldn't figure out whether that was recreation or open space. Didn't, was a kind of a stretch of the definition.
It went on to say something about redoing the wiring in the old town,
In the
city
old
hall.
high school,
City
yeah.
hall.
City Hall.
Yeah,
I don't think the high school is historic, but the city hall.
Right, City Hall's got some historic.
So you
Yeah.
could say I'm putting a new Ethernet like it used to be, huh?
Daisy chain.
I've got one item just to fill you in on the saga of these warrant articles that were now going to be for the January. I did get a call kind of out of the blue a few weeks ago from Chris Kushel, who, just wanted to know how things were going on with our ongoing attempts to get bylaws amended. And he then said that the MAPC might have funding that is unused that they could use to help us draft and format and, put these draft bylaws that we have done in the proper form for the town meeting. Well, that was kind of cool because we were, really struggling finding someone to do that locally. So long story short, at the beginning of this week, he said they did have the funding. He's got to go on that. And so
Wow.
MAPC is going to take the bylaws that they drafted in the first place and is going to assist us in doing what has been a struggle up to this point. Hopefully it won't be less of a struggle if they get these and format them for the town meeting. So yeah, that's pretty big.
Wow.
And
Can they do a few meeting notes too?
yeah, well, that's the next thing we need is someone to, to do our minutes. And we have someone working on it, by the way. I don't, but she's got a lot of catch up to play because we've got a lot of meetings that where we do not have minutes. So that's a little bit of a concern. And, like tonight, we had a meeting that, was contentious. And it would be nice to have minutes sooner than later for a variety of reasons. But anyway, that's.
Jason, on the MAPC effort, you said they would put in the proper form the revisions that they made for us, but we've changed some things. So you'll need to incorporate those. as
Oh, no,
well.
they know that. They know.
Okay.
that.
Okay.
I've sent them our latest version, but it's obviously not in, final form, but they know that. I've told them that we changed things. Yeah.
Good.
So, okay. That's all I have.
Metropolitan Area Publishing Company, now they're called, huh?
Right.
Mr. Chair, just a quick comment, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I had sent out an email in regard to the potential adoption of a digital permit software that we'd be using townwide.
Yes, I saw that.
I know that Tom at least got to check out the recording, if not watch it the whole way through so far. But I'm planning on sort of gathering response to that over the course of the next week while I'm out, and then potentially having a meeting the following week with anybody who's interested in voicing it in either an in-person or over a Zoom call, just how you guys are feeling about that and about that software and the concept behind it as well. So if you haven't had the chance yet to review the recording, please do. Tom made the comment that watching the recording does currently require a Zoom account. I've been working with the consultant on rectifying that, so it's simply a watch link rather than a log in and watch link. But I haven't made much of a progress on that so far. But if that does change, I'll definitely send out a new link so it's a little easier to view. As of right now, you just have to log in with a Zoom account in order to access it, which I think most members of the board probably do have a Zoom account that they can use for that, but I'd like to make it more accessible if I can.
Yeah, no, so let me ask you a question then. Does that, I mean, I've been pretty occupied last few days getting ready for this meeting, but does one have to watch, or should one watch the link that you sent first before an in-person meeting with you later? Is that what you're saying?
Either way is fine. Essentially the link is a demonstration that was recorded that had some members of the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Board of Health on it. So you'd get the chance to watch what they saw over Zoom, as well as hear what their immediate response was in the course of the meeting. So I think it would be helpful to watch it. But if you do have any sort of immediate standout concerns, feel free to give me a call. I'm at a conference Monday through Wednesday next week,
Okay,
and
great.
then off Thursday, Friday, but shoot me an email with questions and I can get back to you in time, or give me a call the following week.
Definitely going to watch that. So I will be sure to do that. Thank you. All right.
Harry, did you have a question in regard to the permit stuff or something for the meeting?
Actually, I had a question of our Board of Select Person liaison, but she just left the session. So my question for Denise was to be that of the housing production plan. And obviously that's something that has, well, let's put it this way. We're one of very few North Shore communities that doesn't have one. And as you'll recall, we put out a request, an RFP, and nobody bid on it. And unfortunately, due to some lack of communication, I would have been able to at least solicit one, probably more than one interested party. They simply weren't aware of it. I can't explain why they weren't aware of it, but it is what it is. We need to get that RFP back out there.
Yeah, we do. MAPC has also said that they will, again, I don't know why they didn't pick up on it, but they would have been interested in it too. So we got at least two different entities who would have been interested. I don't know what happened. I'm really puzzled, Yeah. So you're right. I'm going to be talking to Denise tomorrow. I'll mention that to her, because it's really, we need to do this, and you've been very persistent about this, Harry. My hat's off to you about that. I mean, this is.
And look where we are.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Public comment. Second time around. Anybody got their hand up? Toby.
Mr. Chair, I have Toby Arsenian.
Yeah.
Thank you. Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. I thought you'd agreed before that you would put up plans of the properties that you were discussing. It is supposed to be a public meeting. You're conducting public business, and people can't fairly appreciate what you're up to if they can't see the plans. I'm referring to Gull Cove Lane, but also to Landmark Lane as well. It would be minimal trouble, and it would be the right thing to do. I know it's not required, but good faith and goodwill. Mention of all of the cut and fill at 96 Granite and transportation to the tool company site. Somebody needs to go back and look at the code of bylaws which also, perhaps redundantly and perhaps not, deals with cut and fill. And at some point, look at that, and I believe the selectmen get dragged into it, issuing a permit. I don't know what the threshold is offhand. And as for the tool company and the fill there, you should be aware there's some provision in the zoning. And again, off the top of my head, I can't tell you where, but you should be able to find it, that a certain amount of fill triggers the requirement for a filing showing all of the final grades of a property. So that might be both informative and useful for the board going forward, and certainly it would be an advantage to the public. One final thing, for years, when taxed with concerns about the tool company site, the selectmen have said that it's a matter of public concern and that they would undertake to keep the public informed of matters there as they moved forward. And they have consistently failed to do so. It falls to me and a few other people to needle them. Perhaps you could speak with your liaison, Denise, and make sure that at their next public meeting, they make some attempt to inform the public of where we stand, both the permits issued and the ones that are now filed for. Would you do that?
I don't think she's at the meeting anymore, Toby.
You could speak with her.
Yeah, I will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, any other public comment?
I move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Second moved by Tom, second by Harry. Roll call vote. Harry,
Aye.
Tom.
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
and I'll say aye also. It's 8:30. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. And thank you, Robert, for your great input and recording. And we'll see you folks in the near future. Okay.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks, but who's counting? Okay. Thanks a lot. Have a
Have
good
a great
night.
night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.